Imagine living in a city where millions of people share the same streets, but there are no toilets, no sewers, and no way to flush away human waste. The smell hangs in the air, diseases spread rapidly, and every day begins with the same dangerous problem. It may not sound like the most glamorous invention in history, but the toilet has saved more lives than almost any weapon, medicine, or machine ever created. Its story stretches back thousands of years and reveals how civilizations rose, collapsed, and reinvented one of humanity's most basic needs. Our journey begins long before porcelain bowls and flushing handles. Early humans lived as hunter-gatherers, moving frequently across landscapes. With small populations constantly on the move, waste rarely accumulated in one place. Nature handled the problem. But everything changed around 10,000 years ago when humans began building permanent settlements. As villages grew into towns and towns into cities, waste became impossible to ignore. People lived closer together, shared water sources, and produced far more refuse than the land could naturally absorb. Contaminated drinking water led to deadly illnesses, even though no one yet understood bacteria or viruses. Civilizations were learning that survival depended not only on food and shelter, but also on sanitation. One of the first societies to solve this challenge appeared in the Indus Valley, in what is now Pakistan and northwest India, around 2600 BCE. Cities such as Mohenjo-daro and Harappa displayed an astonishing level of urban planning. Streets followed neat grids, houses were built with baked bricks, and many homes contained their own toilets connected to covered drainage channels. Wastewater flowed through carefully designed brick sewers beneath the streets, making these cities cleaner than many places built thousands of years later. This wasn't simply clever engineering. It reflected a society that understood organization and public health, even without modern science. Archaeologists continue to marvel at how advanced these drainage systems were. While much of the ancient world relied on open pits or nearby fields, the people of the Indus Valley were already creating something remarkably close to modern plumbing. Meanwhile, in ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Crete, different solutions emerged. Wealthy families sometimes used stone or wooden toilet seats placed above containers or drainage systems. In the palace of Knossos on the island of Crete, evidence suggests that an early flushing mechanism carried waste away using flowing water. These inventions were limited to elites, but they demonstrated an important idea. Water could become humanity's greatest ally in keeping cities clean. Then came the Romans, who transformed sanitation on an entirely different scale. Rome's population eventually exceeded 1 million people, making it one of the largest cities on Earth. Keeping such a massive population alive required engineering unlike anything seen before. The Romans built aqueducts that carried fresh water across valleys and mountains into the heart of their cities. That constant flow powered fountains, baths, and one of history's most famous sewer systems, the Cloaca Maxima. Originally constructed centuries before the Roman Empire reached its height, the Cloaca Maxima became the backbone of Rome's sanitation network. Rainwater, wastewater, and sewage flowed through enormous underground tunnels before emptying into the Tiber River. Although primitive by modern standards, it represented a revolutionary leap forward in urban engineering. Public toilets became common throughout Roman cities. Unlike today's private bathrooms, these were communal spaces where dozens of people sat side by side on long stone benches with evenly spaced openings. There were no partitions and little privacy. People discussed politics, business, and daily life while using the facilities. Beneath the seats, running water continuously carried waste away. Cleaning practices were equally surprising. Instead of toilet paper, Romans often used a sponge attached to a wooden stick. After use, it was rinsed in flowing water or vinegar before being reused. By today's standards, the idea sounds unpleasant. Yet for the Romans, it represented an organized and practical solution. To many citizens, these public latrines symbolized the sophistication of Roman civilization. Behind the marble buildings and magnificent temples stood an invisible network of pipes, drains, and sewers that helped sustain one of history's greatest empires. But even the most impressive systems depend on the society that maintains them. And when Rome began to weaken, its remarkable sanitation network would slowly begin to crumble. The collapse of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century did more than redraw political borders. It also shattered many of the systems that had quietly supported everyday life. Aqueducts fell into disrepair, public baths closed, and the great sewer networks that had once carried waste away from crowded neighborhoods slowly clogged or collapsed. Without regular maintenance, one of Rome's greatest engineering achievements faded into history. Across much of medieval Europe, sanitation became far more local and far less organized. Large cities still existed, but they lacked the coordinated infrastructure that had once kept Roman streets relatively clean. Most households relied on chamber pots, simple containers used indoors that had to be emptied by hand. Too often, their contents were dumped directly into nearby streets, rivers, or open ditches. Imagine walking through a busy medieval city after a rainstorm. Narrow streets crowded with merchants, livestock, and pedestrians were mixed with mud, garbage, and human waste. The smell was overwhelming, especially during the summer months. Water sources became contaminated, attracting insects and rats that helped spread disease. Although people blamed foul air for illness rather than invisible microbes, they understood that dirty cities were dangerous places to live. Yet medieval sanitation was not completely primitive. In castles, nobles often used structures known as garderobes. These small stone rooms projected from the castle walls, with a vertical shaft leading downward. Waste simply dropped into a pit below or, in some cases, directly into a flowing river or moat. It was a practical solution, but hardly a pleasant one. Servants were responsible for cleaning the pits, making one of history's least desirable occupations an essential part of castle life. Monasteries often demonstrated better hygiene than surrounding towns. Many were carefully planned communities with running water diverted from nearby streams. Some monasteries built surprisingly advanced latrines that used flowing water to carry waste away, reflecting the importance monks placed on cleanliness and order. These isolated examples showed that improved sanitation was still possible, even if it had become uncommon. As Europe's population expanded during the Middle Ages, sanitation problems grew worse. Cities became denser, while waste disposal methods changed very little. Livestock shared streets with people, slaughterhouses emptied waste into rivers, and drinking water was frequently drawn from the same sources. The stage was being set for repeated public health disasters. Then came one of history's deadliest pandemics. In the mid-14th century, the Black Death swept across Europe, killing tens of millions of people in only a few years. Modern historians know the disease was caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, spread primarily by fleas carried on rats. Medieval people, however, had no understanding of germs. Many believed poisonous air, divine punishment, or unlucky planetary alignments were responsible. While poor sanitation did not directly cause the plague, filthy urban conditions created environments where rats flourished. Overcrowded neighborhoods, overflowing waste pits, and contaminated waterways allowed disease to spread rapidly. The catastrophe forced many communities to reconsider how cities should be managed, even if scientific explanations remained centuries away. By the Renaissance, European inventors began searching for better solutions. One remarkable figure was Sir John Harington, an English courtier and godson of Queen Elizabeth I. In 1596, he published a description of an innovative flushing toilet that used water to remove waste from a bowl through a valve system. He even installed one at his own home and another for the Queen. Technically, Harrington's invention worked, but it failed to transform everyday life. Most towns simply lacked the plumbing needed to support flushing toilets. Water had to be carried manually, sewer systems were limited, and maintaining such devices was expensive. For ordinary families, chamber pots remained cheaper and more practical. Harrington's remarkable design was centuries ahead of the infrastructure required to make it successful. Still, his invention planted an important idea. The future of sanitation would depend not only on better toilets, but on entire networks of pipes, clean water, and underground sewers working together. As European cities entered the Industrial Revolution, populations exploded. Millions of people crowded into rapidly growing urban centers, creating sanitation problems on a scale the world had never seen before. What followed would become one of the greatest public health crises in modern history, and it would finally force governments to reinvent the toilet forever. The Industrial Revolution transformed cities faster than they could adapt. During the 18th and 19th centuries, millions of people left the countryside to work in expanding factories. London became the largest city on Earth, but beneath its economic success lay a growing disaster. Most homes still emptied waste into cesspits or directly into the River Thames, the same river that supplied much of the city's drinking water. As the population surged, the river became an open sewer. The consequences were devastating. Cholera outbreaks swept through London's crowded neighbourhoods in 1832, 1849, and 1854, killing tens of thousands. At the time, many officials believed disease spread through foul-smelling air, known as the miasma theory. But one physician, Dr. John Snow, suspected something different. By carefully mapping cholera cases during the 1854 outbreak, he traced many infections to a single public water pump on Broad Street. When the pump's handle was removed, the outbreak began to subside. His investigation became one of the first great breakthroughs in modern epidemiology, showing that contaminated water, not bad air, was responsible for spreading the disease. Even then, meaningful action came only after an unforgettable crisis. The summer of 1858 became known as the Great Stink. An unusually hot season caused the polluted River Thames to emit an unbearable odour that drifted across London. The smell became so overwhelming that curtains inside the Houses of Parliament were soaked in chemicals in a desperate attempt to block it out. Meetings were interrupted, businesses struggled, and newspapers described the river as a national disgrace. What decades of disease had failed to accomplish, the terrible smell finally did. It forced politicians to act. The man chosen to solve the problem was civil engineer Joseph Bazalgette. His vision was extraordinary. Rather than simply building larger drains, he designed an entirely new sewer network beneath London. More than 1,000 miles of street sewers connected to massive underground interceptor sewers that carried waste away from the city before it could contaminate drinking water. Pumping stations, embankments, and carefully engineered tunnels transformed London's sanitation forever. Bazalgette deliberately built the system larger than the city needed at the time, predicting that London's population would continue to grow. His foresight proved remarkable. Much of his Victorian sewer network still serves the city today, more than 150 years later. As cleaner water replaced contaminated supplies, cholera outbreaks disappeared, proving that good sanitation could save countless lives. While sewer systems solved one half of the problem, toilets themselves continued to evolve. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, manufacturers improved flushing mechanisms, introduced ceramic porcelain bowls that were easier to clean, and standardized plumbing connections. Indoor bathrooms gradually became a feature of middle-class homes before spreading to wider society. What had once been considered a luxury slowly became an everyday expectation. Throughout the 20th century, governments invested heavily in clean water systems and wastewater treatment plants. Engineers developed ways to filter drinking water, remove harmful bacteria, and safely process sewage before releasing treated water back into rivers and oceans. These invisible systems dramatically increased life expectancy and reduced diseases that had plagued humanity for thousands of years. Today, toilets come in forms that ancient engineers could scarcely imagine. Modern designs use powerful siphon systems while consuming far less water than older models. Some countries, particularly Japan, have pioneered smart toilets equipped with heated seats, automatic lids, self-cleaning nozzles, air dryers, deodorizing systems, and sensors that improve comfort and hygiene. Meanwhile, engineers are developing waterless toilets and sustainable sanitation systems designed for regions where traditional plumbing remains unavailable. Yet the story is far from over. According to global public health organizations, billions of people still lack access to safely managed sanitation. In many parts of the world, contaminated water continues to spread preventable diseases, reminding us that sanitation remains one of humanity's greatest ongoing challenges. The invention of the toilet is not merely a story about convenience, it is a story about dignity, equality, engineering, and survival. From the carefully planned drains of the Indus Valley to the bustling public latrines of ancient Rome, from the filthy streets of medieval Europe to the massive Victorian sewers beneath London, every chapter of history has revealed the same lesson. Great civilizations are judged not only by their monuments or armies, but by how well they protect the health of ordinary people. The toilet may seem like an ordinary object hidden behind a bathroom door, but its history tells a remarkable story of human ingenuity. It helped transform crowded settlements into thriving cities, turned deadly rivers into cleaner waterways, and quietly saved millions of lives. Few inventions have done more to shape civilization, yet few receive so little attention. The next time you press a flush handle, you're using the latest chapter of an invention that has been evolving for more than 4,000 years, and one that continues to change the world every single day.